good day to you. You are coming into a series, a program on right learning and recovery of childhood. We will start with children and childhood, we move on to youth, and we will also have another day for father with honor, to serve with love, and to mother with affection, and an appeal to all stakeholders. I want to introduce to you today the digital effect on the child's development. To catch your attention quickly, let me word it like this. As you can see on the slide, our brain has the frontal cortex, and the right part of the frontal cortex, just behind your eye, is the prefrontal lobe. Now, the frontal lobe, most of it has to do with planned, coordinated action. So, when a child, or for that matter an adult, they want to be doing some voluntary action, the frontal lobe plans. How does the frontal lobe plan? Frontal lobe plans with empathy, which means consideration for others, begins time, the stop time, and the amount of force that action needs. All that is involved in frontal lobe planning. Whereas, that part of the prefrontal cortex, prefrontal lobe, that is involved in response to sudden action. That's what the prefrontal cortex is about, response to sudden action. That is the ventral medial part of the prefrontal cortex, just to use a medical term, the inner lower part, that responds to sudden action for survival. For instance, when you try to slip on, say, a banana skin, what happens is, immediately without thinking, you will grab whoever is near you. Even if it's an old grandparent who may fall and break a bone, you don't think about it because you're falling, you grab, and that's the way the brain responds to emergency. Now, when a child gets used to being overwired in that part of the brain, which is for survival, thrill, action in fight, flight or fright, that child does not consider anybody else. So, when the child is into a lot of digital games, especially war games, it's all about survival and killing someone and overcoming. That part of the brain gets wired, which is usually meant for survival and sudden action. Now, you will now understand the three principles of this subject, the three main features, which is inattention, child can't sit still at class or in normal work. Then impulsivity, the child is on edge inside him. And the third part is hyperactivity. Now, the doctors label these three features as ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, that grouping those symptoms together is true, but we don't want to label a child with a medical diagnosis and start giving that child drugs too early. We are of the school of thought that this child now can be brought back to normal life, normal behavior, by what we call empathic learning therapy. What does empathic learning therapy means? It means according to the way this child is ready to receive. You understand the word empathy. So, you make the child to relearn the habits he has not learned, and we teach the child to remanage the resources the child has not been remanaging well, and we retrain him in his character using very simple arts, crafts, music, games and other things. So, when a child is inattentive and has this impulsivity inside him and hyperactive, the school teacher picks up first, because sadly in modern day society, father will be working, often the mother is working, and they may see the child very briefly in the morning or drop the child at school, and they may not see the child till late in the evening. This is modern reality. Whereas in the primary years 1, 2, 3, 4, especially in year 1 or 2, the class teacher will be with the child for 4 hours, 4.5 hours. Then the class teacher begins to pick up, this child cannot wait in one place. So, what happens is that child begins to disturb other children. then it becomes a big battle of wits between the school, the teacher and the parents to convince the parents that there is a problem. Now, you know our parents, unless there is a solution, they will not admit to the problem. So, our approach is this: we want to make a bridge between school and home. We want to make a bridge between teacher and parent and offer them this program, this empathic learning therapy and the work of our empathic learning center to make it possible for the child over a period of time to be able to attend to his school studies with attention. So, when there is inattention, we have to train the child in attention. Now, you may ask, why did the child become inattentive? We know that children learn. What do children learn? They learn from what they have received. So, when a child is born, the child already has had the bonding inside the mother's womb because the child recognizes the mother's heartbeat. And when you are breastfeeding the child begins to recognize the same impulse, the same rhythm as the mother's heartbeat. And this gives the child great confidence. Then, as I often say, the mother looks at the child, the mother takes the child into her hands and looks at the child, and the mother says goo and the child says goo, and the two together make the google.com. That's how intelligence is grown. Now, I have to tell you, attention and bonding is first spiritual. So, if you are a listener that you have understood man is spirit, soul and body, it is very much, it's quite easy to follow this. But the fact is that the child's attention is initially spiritual. That's how in the mother's womb the child bonds with the mother. Now, when we were medical students also, they knew that there was a thing called maternal deprivation syndrome. That is, when the child is not getting the mother's attention, the child does not get what the mother should be giving, and maybe the mother is not getting what the mother should be getting, the child's weight begins to drop. It was as simple as that. Now, of course, they know much more than this. We have 4D ultrasonic photography that you can look at the child in the womb, exactly how the child feels. So, when the mother is happy, child is smiling. And when the mother is in grief, child shows grief. This is how close intrauterine life is to mother's spiritual, mental, emotional health. This continues even after the child is born. So, the child's first attention is spiritual. Secondly, emotional. When the child gets emotional attention in the first few weeks of life, child becomes attentive. When the child does not get emotional attention, when no one is giving the child emotional attention, child doesn't grasp attention. So, later in about 4, maybe 6 weeks time, 8 weeks time, child begins to hear audible words clearly, then begins the process of brain developing for intellectual attention. Now, we are all very keen on intellectual attention. We are very keen that our child should become Einstein or maybe Louis Pasteur or whatever. But before intellectual brilliance comes spiritual attention and emotional attention, so emotional grasping, and then the child begins to pick up words and understand, and the child will respond to your intelligent questioning and intelligent maneuvers. So, it is very important for us to understand this child, I believe, when the father and the mother brought forth the sperm, father gave the sperm, mother gave the ovum, and the two came together and became a zygote. And the body is multiplying, and into this multiplying little body, the Father in heaven sends a little life, a little person, a spirit person, and that spirit person begins to grow as a soul and personality with emotion even in the mother's womb, grasping from mother love, affection, everything that goes on. So, in the while the child is in the womb, child's person is growing, child's spirit is growing, and the child's brain is growing. Now, this is how God designed. And when the child has grown like that, his soul is increasingly understanding his world, his limited world, then the child is born. When the child is born, the child is now still spirit, soul and body. What happens is we neglect the spirit completely, and the child's soul and personhood is now growing. Now, because of the child's spirit, he knows the Father. And in the Word of God, James 1:17 says, it is a gift of God. It's from the Father above, the Father of light, whom this gift came, gift of life, gift of person came. And parents receive this gift. So father and mother, your main call and vocation in life is not your career or your financial status, but raising this life, this next generation, as God gave it to you. And you're raising this child, and this child, because in his spirit he has belonging to where he came from our Heavenly Father's home. Child has belonging in that. But when the child is growing years come 5, 10, 15, we get him to grow and we train him to grow in his personality and identity. How do I tackle the world? So sadly, as a soul is growing, personality is growing, he learns tit for tat, butter for fat, you kill my dog, I'll kill your cat, and he begins to hear might is right and only the fittest will survive. That's how the world goes. And he neglects his spirit. Often parents also don't think about this. But there is a deposit of God in the spirit of the child. That the child, when that spirit comes alive again, that child has more than 50% of what he received for his birthright waiting to come alive. This is the truth. So we grow, child, youth or adult, we grow personality, personhood, which is good. We grow identity and what others think about us. We are very conscious about this, which is also good. But we have neglected our primary belonging about where we came from, where our greatness will come, where our actual significance lies. So we try hard, fight hard for belonging, bonding, I deserve better than this, and then we do our best to improve our value and worth with education. Education is good, but there is that significance that is waiting to come to us because our Father in heaven created us in His image. So Psalm 139 says, "O God, your thoughts towards me are so vast and so precious. You knitted me in my mother's womb." Now this knitting was not only physical organ, our brain is getting knit. So this whole series is about how we will learn to live childhood, youth into adult. As children, young people, marrying young people, we become parents, then we become seniors, we become mentors to others in every stage of life. Now brain scientists have found that brain is neuroplastic. Plasticity is that brain is constantly adapting and changing to your season of life. Even at the age of 60, you can be doing new things. Brain is not dead, brain is not static, it is a marvelous gift of God. Brain is a marvelous gift of God. Spirit is a marvelous gift of God. And if you allow Him to work with you, there's so much more awaiting you. You may be 60, you may be 40, you may be in your roaring 20s, and you may be a child listening or a parent wanting to know how best to give the best for my children. May you work with the child's brain, may you work with the child's heart, may you work with the child's spirit in which his greatness lies. This is the message of the series. This is the introductory message covering the whole gamut of what we hope to cover. I'm very grateful to Swarga TV that they arranged this, made this possible. So be with us, hang on, there'll be program after program to improve how you will be relating to your child, how you will be relating to your young boy or girl in their difficult years. Then